Last summer in a county you've probably never heard of, a farmer walked out to his well just after sunrise. He'd done it 1,000 times, same cracked mud, same rusted handle. Only this time when he turned it, nothing came out, not a single drop. He stood there, hands still on the tap, then looked up. Past the tree line, where there used to be nothing but scrub oaks and quiet, a massive building now sat, blank walls, no signage, just a low mechanical hum vibrating through the ground. He didn't know what it was yet, but the water beneath his feet no longer belonged to him. It had been signed away, not by him, by local officials, behind closed doors. And the contract came with a clause, a non-disclosure agreement, that made it illegal for anyone in that room to warn him. How much water, for how long, to whom. He didn't lose his well to a drought. He lost it to a secret deal, one now repeating in towns across the country, quietly, legally, with the help of the people you elected. So here's the question. If a company can drain your water, and your own government is forbidden to warn you, who really owns the ground beneath your feet? The building past the tree line wasn't a factory or a warehouse. It was a data center, rows of servers humming day and night, training the models that now write your emails and answer your search queries. And in the race to build more of them, faster than anyone else, these facilities stopped being infrastructure. They became secrets. The company didn't announce its arrival, no press release, no town hall. Instead, they walked into the county board meeting with an offer. Tax revenue, a handful of jobs in exchange for one small concession, a non-disclosure agreement. The officials would know everything, the size, the electricity, the water, but they couldn't repeat any of it. Not to the press, not to regulators, not to the people whose land sat on top of the water table. The county signed, most do. The numbers on the table are staggering. A single data center campus can bring tens of millions in annual tax revenue to a county that's been bleeding jobs for decades. Enough to fix the roads, fund the schools, keep the hospital open. That kind of money doesn't feel like a risk. It feels like the town finally getting its turn. The question is, who gets to know the price before it's too late? The contract the farmers' county signed wasn't long, just a few pages. Buried in the middle was one clause that changed everything. The company would disclose exactly how much water it planned to use. And in exchange, every official in that room was legally barred from repeating that number to anyone outside it, including the man whose well sat 200 yards from the property line. The county got a check. The company got silence. And silence in this industry is a billion-dollar asset. A modern AI data center doesn't drink water, it breathes it. Millions of gallons a day, cycled through servers running hot enough to melt without constant cooling. That's why these facilities chase cheap land and thin oversight, and why one signature on an NDA can bury the truth before the first pipe ever touches the ground. The farmer never saw the contract. Neither did anyone else in town. They just woke up one morning to a dry well and a low, steady hum they couldn't explain. By the time the questions started, the answers were already illegal to give. While the farmer was still staring at his dry well, something else was already in motion. News of the deal had quietly traveled to neighboring counties. Not the details, those were locked behind the same NDA, but the promise. A Fortune 500 company had chosen this region. Tax revenue was up. A handful of construction jobs had come and gone. The county administrator gave a carefully worded quote to the local paper about economic revitalization and forward momentum. What he couldn't mention was the water. Other towns saw the headline and wanted their own version of the miracle. They reached out to the same company. The company was happy to talk. Same pitch, same smile, same NDA. And before long, a quiet auction began. Communities competing for the privilege of giving away something they didn't yet know was scarce. This is the genius of the machine. It doesn't need to force anyone. It just needs one desperate county to say yes. After that, the silence becomes a selling point. The next town signs faster, asking fewer questions because they're terrified of losing the deal to someone else. The corporation never has to lie. It simply allows the fear of being left behind to do the work. 18 months, that's how long the silence held, until a young hydrologist at the state water board pulled up a spreadsheet and stopped scrolling. She was reviewing aquifer data across a cluster of rural counties when the numbers stopped making sense. Water tables weren't dipping the way they do in a dry season. They were falling off a cliff. Whole sections of the underground basin were emptying out at a rate that only meant one thing: someone somewhere was pulling millions of gallons a day. She mapped the coordinates against building permits. Same blank-walled structures a farmer 3 counties over had already been photographing from his fence line. Data centers, dozens of them, not one listed on a public water use registry. So she filed a records request and got back a stack of contracts with the exact same paragraph blacked out every time. The NDA clause, the one that made it illegal to tell her what was already sitting right there on her screen. A reporter got the data next, then a state senator, then a courtroom. The machine kept running, It always does. But for the first time, someone outside the room could see its shape. The question was no longer what the companies had taken. It was what they'd left behind and who was going to be handed the bill. While the farmer was hauling water from his brother's property 40 miles away, a law firm 3 states over was quietly invoicing the corporation for a very specific service. They called it community risk management. What that meant in practice was simple. Draft an NDA so tight that no public official would ever dare open their mouth, then bill by the hour for the silence you'd manufactured. That firm was not an exception. It was part of a quiet industry that has grown up around the AI boom. Site selection consultants who match data centers with desperate counties, shell company specialists who keep the corporate name off every public filing, and public relations teams who coach local officials on exactly which words to use when the press eventually calls. Economic revitalization, forward momentum, never water, never aquifer, never dry well. Each of these intermediaries took a cut. Some charged flat fees, others negotiated a percentage of the tax breaks they helped secure. And the county officials who signed the deals, many were re-elected. The tax revenue was real, and the voters didn't know what they'd traded away. The machine wasn't built by villains. It was built by professionals who found a way to profit from the gap between what a community needed and what it was allowed to know. The farmer's story isn't unique. It's barely even unusual. In Newton County, Georgia, a single Meta facility now uses roughly 500,000 gallons of water a day, close to 10% of the entire county's supply. In Tucson, Arizona, Amazon spent nearly 2 years negotiating a campus that would draw from a drought basin, the whole deal sealed behind NDA until it was already approved. In Shreveport, Louisiana, residents found out about a proposal to sell 5 million gallons a day to cool a new campus only when the governor announced it publicly, after the contracts were signed. Different states, different companies, the same clause buried on the same page. The names on the buildings change: Google, Microsoft, Amazon, or a shell company that hides the name entirely. The architecture underneath never does. Secrecy first, speed second, and a legal agreement ensuring the public only learns the damage once the water is already gone. The farmer never got his water back. The data center is still there, still humming, still pulling from the same ground that once fed his land. But he started asking questions, not just about his own well, but about the pattern. Who signed the deal? Who wrote the contract? Who decided his family's water was worth less than a tax break and a promise? What he found wasn't a villain. It was a system built on one elegant principle: keep the cost invisible and the public will never organize against it. The law firms draft the NDAs, the consultants scout the land, the shell companies hide the names, the officials, desperate for revenue, sign on the line. Everyone in the chain is just doing their job. The farmer was never in the room. That's the blueprint. Wealth doesn't need to steal your resources if it can write a contract that keeps you from knowing they're gone. Power doesn't need to break the law if it can make silence a condition of investment. This machine runs in county board meetings, in redacted documents, in fine print that's never put to a public vote. And right now, in some town you've never visited, another farmer is waking up to a dry well. Another hydrologist is staring at numbers that don't add up. Another reporter is filing a request that comes back with the same paragraph blacked out. The names on the buildings will change. The architecture won't. So next time you pass one of those windowless buildings with no signage and a low mechanical hum, ask what they promised your town and what your town promised back. The answer is written down somewhere. You're just not allowed to read it. Not yet.